at Apex.
Himmelsdorf, a small city map. The teams start the battle in opposite corners. Both bases are located close to each other, but in a way that you can't stay on the defensive all the time. The main attack routes pass through the hill, the alley and the railroad, but in general, the attack can be successfully executed through any part of the map. Heavy tanks and tank destroyers with powerful guns run the show here. However, a lot depends on the mobile light tanks.
Here we go. The very first map and battle of Deja Vu versus Apex. Again, to remind everyone watching, this went to overtime. The last time these two teams played, Apex was able to squeeze it out over Deja Vu, but still really impressed with Deja Vu, able to take Apex that far. Now looking at the tank lineups, speaking of meme strats, we actually are going to see a mouse coming out of the team of Deja Vu, and it's going to be Deja in that. We also have an IS-4, 350Bs, and then 2 Batchat Tier 9s. Moving forward to Apex, it's going to be 2 113s, an IS-7, a 50B, a Grill, a Batchat, and a 1390.
Yeah, and so bringing that mouse, kind of an odd pick. However, Deja is just going to stay put pretty much in base, play that corner there. Meanwhile, the rest of the team going towards the hill, and they may catch Canadian Impact out. And they will spot him, but they're not loaded yet, and he may back up for free.
Oh, Canadian Impact. There it is. Shots finally being loaded. And damage coming onto Canadian Impact. He's going to take 950.
But they haven't spotted the tanks below. This is one of those math games where you need to count. Now, he needs to try to get out before these Batchats chase him up, but they should find some shots.
Is he going to get out in time? Oh, and he does get some cover.
Now, look at this. All of the tanks are here for Deja Vu, and Apex don't know they're up, but they're doing some simple math, and they're saying, all right, chances are the mouse and the IS-4 are not up here.
Oh, and Canadian Impact going to find Nationwide.
In that
one shot away from going down.
Grill just of Dodoma put a shot in there, softened him up, made him go down. But now they've committed all their tanks up to the hill. They are all spotted, and it's Apex that are driving up here with the majority of their tanks. And here's the bait. Once again, the same thing we saw last game.
Oh, no. They could be driving right into it. Lots of damage coming onto the tanks of Deja Vu. Social Flaws taking damage. My Little Putin getting put to about a half. Social Flaws taking another shot.
And now all the guns for Apex are going to group up and push the hill. And these 50Bs don't have a choice but to back off, but they're not going to get out of this hill for scot-free. They are going to take damage as they leave. Doma's going to line it up.
Oh, and another nice shot. Social Flaws getting so lucky not being taken out. 10 HP left on that tank. And Harmless going to be found by Photo Finish as he was trying to get away. And we see Photo Finish set up right there at about E7. Was able to find that shot on the crossfire as they were coming down from off that hill.
And this is all but over for Deja Vu. That mouse not really able to get into that fight. The IS-4 still left out over on the 2-line, completely out of the fight. And this match is going to be over in a matter of a minute.
On an unfortunate apology here we have for you. Photo Finish. Gonna take out change. I really like, by the way, where he was set up.
Yeah, no, it was great positioning there. Out of all of Apex, they said, all right, they're probably up on the hill, so we'll leave one tank to catch them, and the rest will go up and make sure that we aren't outgunned up on the hill.
Oh, and this camo was wrong. That was what I was going to apologize for. Real quick, this is not the right camos. That is actually Eclipse's camo. That is the correct camo. There we go.
Now it's just a matter of them chewing through.
My question is, what exactly were they planning with that mouse? That, we really didn't even see.
So what they were hoping for is that they would have all their tanks spotted on the hill, maybe get a pick or two, and Apex's gut reaction would be they'd go over to the 1 cap and try to go get cap pressure over there, maybe stacking it with 3.
Okay. And
they'd have that mouse and that IS-4. The IS-4 was out at a B1. They'd be out there to get those resets on the 1 cap, and so they'd just leave them with no answers. However, overall,
is such a big tank.
Overall, though, Apex read it very well. They didn't overthink the situation. They just said, all right, we'll make sure we pull up enough tanks to the hill. They got them up there, and they punished the a lot of those tanks for overextending, and those 50Bs don't have the greatest gun depression, so those 113s were sitting there where they just had to shoot up.
Sure.
And as you saw, a lot of those 50Bs were just able to get their guns onto the turrets. They weren't able to get onto the lower plate, so they're bouncing a lot of shots. In those sort of situations, like they're poking over just so the turrets are exposed, and they're trying to play the, well, if they can't see all of our tank, they probably won't be able to shoot us as well. And the problem was they didn't have solid shots. And when you have autoloaders, you want to make sure that if you're going to take damage, which you most likely are, even if you just play that kind of situation over the hill, you might as well roll forward all the way, be a little bit more exposed, and make sure that all of you get your shots off. Now, if you're one by yourself, don't bother. But if you're in a group of 4 or 5 tanks, push over, let them trade with you if you know they only have the 150B and a couple 113s, and make sure you get all your shots out of all those autoloaders because you'll come out on top of that trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the damage here, external on the 113 doing 2,500, followed by Photo Finish, Canadian Impact, Dota, and Overload Prime. I mean, again, look at that even spread across the damage. Now, Deja and the Mouse actually did the most damage for the team of Deja Vu, but I mean, that was pretty much after the fact that the match was already over.
Yep, and looking at the second page here, not really able to get into the fight. Social Flaws just got caught out. Once again, he fired 2 shots when he came over the top there. Change did get into his second clip, but only did 1,400, so bouncing the shot there. So they weren't really able to get those 50Bs in to be effective and to get all their shots off. When you only fire 2 shots in the 50B and you live longer than the initial engagement, there's a problem. So
that was also just such a good bait from Apex.
Yeah, well, it was a very clever rotation, and then they had Canadian Impact make sure he got spotted and run away, and so they thought that he was by himself. And then once again, it's the second time tonight where we've seen just an insane bait
on that hill
in the exact same spot. And they just pushed up and over. They had the overmatch, and they capitalized on it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it is what it is, and Apex is going to take a very early 1-0 lead over Deja Vu. Now, Apex is going to be on defense, and Deja Vu has to attack. So I'm curious to see if we're going to see something similar to the last time they played, because it was indeed on this map where we saw those 250Bs of Deja Vu kind of sneak by Apex.
And the problem with Deja Vu is bringing that IS-4 and that
the mouse.
You know they're not going to go up on the hill. They're not going to try.
No,
they're not going to try to even
there.
get up there. So then all of a sudden as a caller, you're sitting there, well, these 2 tanks aren't 2 tanks I have to worry about, so let's just worry about the other 5. So if they have 5 up there, let's make sure we send 6, and then they just left Photo Finish on the 8 line there, and it worked out fantastic.
Yep. And now we see 3 113s for Apex, 3 50Bs, and a 1390. Meanwhile, Deja Vu bringing an IS-7, a 215B, 250Bs. Is that correct? No, it can't be.
No, it's 3 50Bs.
350Bs. There it is. And then a 1390 as well.
Meanwhile, Deja Vu coming in with a 215B, an IS-7, 250Bs, a 4005.
4005, there it is.
A T10, and a Batchat. So, I like the lineup out of Deja Vu. 3 113s, 3 50Bs, and a 1390. A lot of different options on this map you can open up with that. It stays very flexible so you can get around. A lot of bursts out of those 50Bs. 13s have good DPM, but they also maintain the speed so they don't slow down like the 215Bs. So it does open up a lot of options, especially with some more of the quick flowing, flexible strats. Meanwhile, looking at Apex coming in here with 3 113, or excuse me, Deja Vu coming in here with a 215B, an IS-7, 250Bs, a 4005, and a T10, and a Batchat, like I've already said. And with that lineup, as a defense, it gives you that alpha, that 4005 to kind of stop any shots, 50Bs to knock down any sort of push, and then some weight to have some sustainability through that brawl. And then they also have the Batchat that can go and flex around. And as we see, Canadian Impact's actually just chilling out in the train station over at B2. All right. And Deja Vu just working through the south. Only the Batchat and the 4005 over on the 2 line to stop them.
This seems somewhat similar to what we saw them kind of try to pull last time, except now they don't have the 250Bs towards C5.
Well, the thing was is they set that up late. What they did is they They moved these 113s out here. They pulled the attention of Apex over towards this one cap, and then they flexed around with the 50Bs kind of behind everything once they had adjusted. Right now, Apex are just setting up to say, all right, let's see if you run anything like that again. And they're set up to cover all of those just obscure angles. They have one tank watching the hill. They have a bunch of tanks watching the 9 line. But they also have Photo Finish sitting there looking down the 5 line to make sure no 50Bs sneak in like that. Meanwhile, the Doma puts 754 damage into Nationwide.
We're actually seeing Apex kind of pull back from the defensive spot they had on Canadian Impact. Is going to go ahead and move away. So, what exactly is Deja Vu trying to do here? Are they just trying to get information? Are they trying to be patient? Because, I mean, this doesn't really favor them when they just wind down the clock like that.
Yeah, definitely. They're just trying to feel things out. They have a very similar setup to what they did last time. However, they're looking for some sort of rotation through the south. So what they're looking for at this point, since they haven't seen much in the north, is they're looking for some sort of play down the 8 line or across the hill. So they're using Chase to go scout right now. And all these tanks are just kind of sitting here where they can quickly flex and focus on this corner, or if they need to, anywhere down here with stuff coming off the hill. And so what they're hoping for is that Apex don't do the same thing they did last time, which was very simply just move all their guns over here into this whole area and into the train station and over here to focus on this cap. What Apex are doing is pretty much the exact opposite. They're just not rotating it at all. They know there's no pressure, there's no cap right now. So they're trying to wait for these tanks from Deja Vu to make some sort of mistake, flex out in the wrong angle, and just throw themselves away. And that's something they did last time, was they rotated too early. They assumed that all the tanks would be down there, and they left themselves in a very vulnerable situation. Fortunately for them, they did get out of it. They made it work. However, Deja Vu very easily could have won that round if those 50Bs didn't miss those tracking shots. Meanwhile, 50Bs flexing across the top here. They may actually spot the 50Bs if they catch them through that H9 gap.
I still don't like how much time Deja Vu is playing with, because they only have 5 minutes left to get any sort of cap pressure going here, or as far as just a raw cap. And you got to expect that Apex is set up to take care of that, or at least get resets if that's the case, which would mean that time is really not on Deja Vu's side right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And these 50Bs need to make sure they don't overextend. They're fine up on the hill for right now. However, if they do keep driving towards the south, they could pretty easily be overmatched by all of the 50Bs.
Oh, and Dodoma takes out Nationwide, finishes them off. And this is what I was talking about. Now they have even less time to work with, and they're a tank down. Oh, the finish, though.
This is bad. This is bad. These 50Bs could get caught out in this field with the 50Bs, but they're going to go ahead and push in.
Photo Finish is going to turn tail, and he's going to get out of there.
So that could have been very bad if they had stayed there in that courtyard. Those 50Bs are both loaded up on the hill. They would have had clean side shots on those 50Bs and could have gotten 2 tanks down for free. However, Apex are still up by about 2,000 HP right now. Meanwhile, 50Bs for Apex are going to go ahead and fall off of the hill, or drop back anyways. They're both, they are going to continue off, and now it's going to be Deja Vu that's going to go ahead and stack the cap. However, some resets already coming through out of Canadian Impact.
Here comes some cap pressure finally. And the fight is happening as Harmless and Change are, oh my goodness, the damage on a Harmless with that shot. The fight was looking like it was going to be in favor a little bit of Deja Vu, at least to take out a tank from Team Apex, but Dodoma lining up the shot in the 4005, eliminating the Healthful Harmless. Although he does get traded out, Germ is going to find change in return.
You know, Apex are just going to go ahead and push on in and try to clean this up.
And this should be Apex's round here as they clean up social flaws. Chase Potato, Dojil, and My Little Putin are the only ones left. Dojil is going to find external, but I feel like that's almost too little too late for them to really make an impact in this match.
However, Germ could be down a lot more HP here in a second as My Little Putin is loaded.
He isn't going to go down. He should be able to take out My Little Putin here if his shot rolls decently enough. And there it is.
How cool is this? Go ahead and push the 1390 out into
Get off
Overlord Prime's gun.
And it's now up to just Dojil. It is not happening. Deja Vu is going to lose, and it is now a 2-0 lead for the team of Apex.
Definitely. So overall, good stuff there out of Apex. They didn't rotate too soon, which is what happened last time. They said, all right, all their guns are most likely out here, so let's go ahead and just rotate over there. And instead what they did is they said, all right, let's just play it slow. There's no pressure. There's no need to rotate out there. And they waited, and they played the proper game this time. They made sure that what they were seeing is what they actually had, because last time they rotated without really having any information. This time they said, all right, if we don't have the information, then we're just going to hold solid, and that's exactly what they did. And Deja Vu never got that cap pressure going to where it was a problem.
It also doesn't hurt that Dodoma was finding shots in that 4005 and penning almost every single one. Look at that, 3,300 damage, direct hits or 3, and penetrations of 3 with only 3 shots fired. So not bad for Dodoma. My Little Putin being consistent as always for his team, doing 3,100 in the 50B, but even still he got eliminated very fast, and it's going to be a Kula and photo finish following it up for Team Apex.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking down at the bottom, Nationwide just getting caught out, not really able to do a whole lot. And then actually Germ nowhere to be found in that T10, so not too bad there out of Apex, but Chase Potato only getting off 500 damage. She was scouting a lot and then sitting on cap, so not really a whole surprise that his gun didn't do a whole lot of damage that game. However, you know, overall, like I said, a nice calm response out of Apex. They didn't make the same mistake they made last time. Last time they were just too what's the word I'm looking for? They just moved too quickly. Rash, I think it is. There's a word I'm looking for.
I know exactly the word you're talking about. I'll think of it right as we get into the second map of Apex versus Deja Vu.
Ghost Town. The first absolutely symmetrical map, made especially for 7 versus 7 games. The teams start the battle on opposite sides. There are numerous ways to attack here. One of the bases is located in the central square, the other one at the top of the city. The hardest battles are usually fought for the top base, and this calls for the use of heavy tanks. Sometimes the teams choose fast tanks for spotting and base capturing.
So it is going to be hasty,
impatient,
and a little angsty.
Yeah, and that's what we didn't see this time at Apex, and I like it. Going over the lineups here, High coming in with a 50B, a T57, a 215B, a 113, an RU-251, and another 50B. Meanwhile, Apex coming in here with 3 50Bs, a 113, an I-7, and 2 Tier 9 bat shots. So a rather interesting lineup there.
Actually, what we're going to see here, it's going to be Deja Vu is coming in with 3 E100s, an I-7, a 183 215B, and then 2 Batshot Tier 9s.
Sorry about the confusion there.
Yeah, and then it's going to be Apex coming in with a 215B, 2 113s, a T57 Heavy, a 250Bs, and a 251. 3 E100s.
That is a lot of weight and HP for Deja Vu. And as an attacking side,
look at these things.
We actually haven't seen the E100s used a whole lot this season.
Not really.
They still make a good amount of appearances over on the APAC region, watching those streams.
Right. We usually see this tank on mines specifically.
When we have seen it, we've seen it on mines, just using as a holding passive tank underneath the hill, something that's very hard to chew through. However, they're just bringing it in, having the guns and the weight. 3 100s rolling together can be a pretty nasty combination to deal with, especially when they all hit the same tank. If you all roll average, it's 750 each, so 2,300 damage or 22.5 except that you can pump out in one volley if you all roll average. So it's a lot of firepower.
And a lot of weight, like you said. 2,700 HP.
Yeah, just look at already Deja Vu have an HP lead before any shots have been fired just because of the lineups. So definitely going to help out there. And a very split lineup for Apex. They have Germ and Overlord Prime in the north, just clearing that right now. And they have Canadian Impact and Photo Finish all the way down in the south. So what this allows them to do is kind of flex around and try to open up the field for Apex. The problem is if Deja Vu recognize the overmatch, they could just throw all their tanks.
Germ! I thought that was going to be a really bad situation for Germ as he now chases down My Little Putin in the Tier 9 Batshot, and this should be an easy pickup here for Germ. Oh, but he might get traded on himself. Crossfire coming out from Harmless.
I don't know if they'll find the kill shot on him. He should have enough cover to go ahead and get out of there without taking too much more damage.
But look at the damage now being put onto Chase Potato and the rest of Team Deja Vu. And that large HP advantage has quickly diminished for the team of Deja Vu.
These E100s sitting on cap are just getting chewed apart, and no one else is in position for Deja Vu to punish.
No one's supporting these two tanks.
The best they can hope for is a headshot out of that 183. But at this point, these E100s are going to go down for free and not really come up with anything.
Oh, this is just a really bad situation for Deja Vu. Very unfavorable.
You know, for one match or one match day, you can get away with running some really obscure strats, and especially if you catch their team in either a bad mood or whatnot, they can work. And obviously, Apex still got the win in overtime, but, you know, Deja Vu was actually able to get into a lot of the fights just because they were catching Apex off guard. Now Apex knows, even if they don't know exactly what they're going to do, they know, all right, they're going to be running a lot of oddball strats. They're not going to play this standard. So we just need to slow it down and just make sure that we double-check everything. And so far, Apex has not faltered one bit tonight.
No, not at all. And I mean, Wally did say it himself, you shouldn't really run a meta strat against a team that's better than you. But, I mean, these strats are not working at all.
Yeah, no, they're not able to get into the fights. My biggest thing
I understand what he's saying. Like, I get what he's trying to say, but at the same time, I mean, look at the results.
Yeah, and to me, it comes down to the E100s. I get what they're going for. However, the E100s sitting in that spot, they didn't have any solution for the ramp at F4, so they couldn't really punish those tanks when they poked over and got the free resets. At that point, they just sat there and got chewed apart. The E100s couldn't return fire. They couldn't really do anything. And they just sat there and threw away almost, 9,000 HP in damage, and that alone.
Not only that, but they really weren't set up to support those E100s and really punish any sort of resets that were coming out of Apex.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It just feels like that strat just wasn't thought all the way through. Previously, when they brought out these odd strats, they
were beautiful.
Yeah, well, that you could tell that there was at least some sort of logic to them, some sort of, all right, well, these teams do this a lot, so let's just try to do this. Now, obviously, there's a lot of chance for them to fail because they had tanks off by themselves and all little traps that could have backfired on them pretty easily, isolations that could have been overmatched. And so they did work, though, because Apex wasn't necessarily looking for them all the time. The problem is once a team starts looking for them and they catch on to it and you try doing it again, it's very easy to come across the tanks that are separated, they're off by themselves, and just get those easy kills. And that's basically what Apex has been doing all night.
Yeah. So, I mean, Apex looking ever so strong, even coming off of their overtime loss to Eclipse. I mean, look at the damage here. Dodoma, External, Photo Finish, Overload Prime, Canadian Impact, all just doing a really great job of not only punishing those E100s, but also just finding the shots and getting pens.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the second page here, Chase Tato on that I7 only able to do 1,500. Then the E100s here just all trailing, and Change only got off 2 shots, and the other 2 essentially got off 1. I mean, they fired more than that, but the problem is they didn't have good shots. They couldn't really get any solid penetrations or anything, and they just lost all their HP before they could really even get their gun into the fight. Sure. And the thing about the E100 is DPM is awful. Like, it just doesn't have good DPM. It hits hard, so if you can get a bunch of them together and hit something all at the same time, yeah, you can make that work for you. But you need to make sure that every time you fire a volley that you delete a tank, essentially. If you're not doing that in an E100, especially when you're rolling a group like that, then you start having a problem. On mines, you're just running one. You're leaving them there in a passive spot.
It has a very specific role.
It's a very specific role and a very spot where you can protect it. And this sort of strat, I just kind of I just feel it's not thought all the way through. They gave Apex angles to get the resets for free without punishing them. They didn't make the other team push into those E100 guns where they could really be effective. There just wasn't any sort of method to the madness, as it were.
Right. And because of that, I mean, Deja Vu paid, and they lost that round fairly quickly. So.
Yep. So we are on to battle number 4. It is 3-0 in favor of Apex.
Apex, yeah.
And maybe this will be the match that's over in 24 minutes tonight.
I don't know, but Deja Vu is going to be bringing a 113, an IS-7, a 350Bs, and 2 Batchat Tier 9s. Meanwhile, on the side of Apex, it's going to be a 215B, a 113, 250Bs, a Batchat, and 2 T10s.
Yep, so opting for that Tier 9 lineup, bringing those T10s. They've been using the T10s a lot tonight. Last time we saw a T10 and a Batchat on Himmelsdorf. This time we're seeing 2 T10s straight up. And they're actually going to let Canadian Impact play that Batchat. Last season, it was Militant, who's not playing this season, that was constantly put off in the scout roles off by himself. However, with him stepping down this season, Canadian Impact has pretty much stepped into that role and been that lone scout. And that position's not easy to play. It takes a lot of being able to read the game.
Oh, 2 bounces.
Nice little sound there. And
sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, that role could be very hard to play because it takes a lot of reading of the game on your own and knowing when to get into the fight, when not to trade, when to dump your shots. Especially in a map like this where there's a lot of where everything's a heavy tank and you're just that small medium, and you have to open up those good shots in a Batchat. If you try to, take on an IS-7 or a 113 frontally, you're going to have a bad time unless you have heat loaded, and heat's not a common thing in a Batchat because that's the only situation that's going to be good in. So it just takes a lot of patience, and you often could get put into bad situations, and you either have to make the best of it, or you just have to know, all right, well, I'm not really going to be able to do anything this game. I'm just going to have to be stubborn and hard to kill. And it's just a skill set that's actually kind of difficult to pick up for a lot of people. The 2 Tier 9 Batchats have actually pushed around all the way south, and they've really kind of boxed Apex in. And the biggest problem they have right now is if Apex realize they're split, they could just drive a spike right through the middle of this Deja Vu team and just catch them with their tanks isolated. The 50B in the south right now, the 113 of Chase up in the north, and then those Batchats all the way in the south. If they all push in right now, they could get those 50Bs down for free without losing a whole lot. And it almost looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to stack up the cap, or they're going to...
They're going to move forward, though. And it's all of Team Apex. There's not one tank that's off somewhere scouting or looking for lights anywhere else. It's going to be the entire team moving straight down this B line.
And Canadian Impact's actually just going to drive straight in there and clean out Chase Potato while the rest of his team holds back. The rest of the guns aren't really in a situation where they can really cover him, and actually Canadian Impact's not going to go get him.
Interesting.
He's just going to chill out
a little flying V formation there. That was neat.
Yeah, but now Canadian Impact's going to head out there. The rest of the guns are going to pull forward to where they can really shoot. They're losing so much HP right now.
Yeah, I don't know about this play. They've already lost Canadian Impact, and just to get out Chase is still alive. Finally, he goes down. But look how much damage the team of Apex has sustained. I mean, Akula is still taking damage as he's trying to cross.
Yep, and Photo Finish is actually going to go chase down Overlord Prime along with the Doma.
There goes Akula. I mean, almost seemingly for free.
So not quite working out for Apex. And while they were close to what I was talking about as far as grouping up and armor matching, the route they chose kind of left them in an awkward crossfire. They didn't push Canadian Impact out there to where he could clean up that 113.
No.
And they kind of left themselves in a bad situation. Now, if they had just taken a hard left and gone straight at those 50Bs and inside into this courtyard where that 113 couldn't have shot them, then they could have just left Canadian Impact out there. But if they're going to push out along this B line, they need to make sure that someone went and got that 113 out of there because he was in a hole down where they couldn't really have good shots until they pushed all the way forward to where they're sitting right now, essentially. So if they committed the Batchat and known, all right, he'll get the kill on this, but he's most likely going to go down, and just held firm with everybody else, it probably would have worked out a lot better. But instead, they tried to keep Canadian Impact alive. They didn't sacrifice him, and it left them in a bad situation. Now, the thing to keep an eye on here is they've actually done a pretty good job at clawing back into this. They are only down on HP by about 300. And it's actually going to be a lot more because External and Germ are both going to take a lot of shots with these Batchats.
Actually just going to get taken out completely. Overlord Prime is one shot away from meeting Germ in the afterlife. as they are trying to focus fire onto Nationwide here. He has one round left in his, or excuse me, one shell left in his clip. He's going to be taking down External with not a lot of HP left either. This is not looking good at all for Team Apex. Deja Vu is going to steal a battle away from Apex, now making it 3-1.
Yep, so not completely out of this. A little bit unorthodox out of Deja Vu. Kind of had to have the other team. And once again, this has to do with the same thing that they've been doing in previous match weeks, is the other team has to play into your strat for it to work. And that's pretty much what happened here. Was they left that 113 alive for too long. They were given the time to flex tanks into position to really punish them as they've kind of made that ball push. And they just really couldn't pick off any tanks quickly to get into that fight. And Deja Vu, did a good job lurking around the edges and making it very difficult for Apex to get in isolation. The only one they gave them was the one they wanted them to have on that 113, a Chase.
Chase, yeah.
And they pushed it in the one way that really wouldn't work out for them. If they had moved that batch head around and moved up simultaneously and had the other guns focus on other tanks, it may have worked.
Situation, yeah.
But they gave up so much HP just trying to kill that 113, it didn't work.
Yeah, well, and just looking at the damage real quick, Photo Finish actually doing 5K. The Jamaican sniper himself doing a 5,000 damage. I think that's the biggest spread we've seen for the team of Apex so far. Photo Finish at 5K and then Akula at 1,500. But then here comes Dergil, Nationwide, and Deja Vu. Look at it, taking it 2 through 6, doing fairly even damage, and it was very well executed by them.
Yeah, definitely. And then looking at the second page there, just nothing really standing out. None of these autoloaders really able to get into their second clips. Well, as I say that, they all got into their second clips. They just weren't effective. Dodoma only putting off 1,300 over 9 shots. External only putting off 1,400 over 12 shots.
It's so weird seeing Canadian Impact where he is.
A lot of just missed shots, and now Canadian Impact just not able to get into that fight at all. Once again, that comes down to he tried to play that just a little bit too perfectly. He used the bat shot. He pushed forward just far enough to have some small shots on that 113, but they weren't consistent shots, and as you saw, he couldn't get any good penetrations. At that point, you kind of have to go, we should just throw the tank away, but make sure that tank's gone, and that opens up everything else for us. You kind of have to recognize when you're in those situations, when you just need to go, all right, we're not going to be able to take this for free, so let's just throw the tank away, because at least that way we know that 113's gone, as opposed to what happened there.
Sure.
I should be able to get him down, but they don't, so they bleed that tank, all his HP. Then the rest of the guys have to push up, and they bleed a bunch more HP trying to do that. That's like 4,000 HP gone that you don't need to lose.
All right, well, being as it is 3-1, let's go into the next map between these two teams.
Prokhorovka, one of the first maps in the game. Teams start at the regular spawn points as they do in standard battles. Bases are separated from each other by the railway, so the defending team has to choose whether to send their vehicles to the left side, playing them in the centre, or to the right of the railway, occupying the hill and a part of the village. The attacking team usually attacks the first base. However, the teams often go for face-to-face confrontations, 7-on-7, in the hilly terrain at the centre. That's why both teams frequently use vehicles with good gun depression angles and sturdy turrets.
And looking at it, Deja Vu coming in with 3 140s, 2 113s, a bat chat, and an RU-251. Meanwhile, Apex coming in here with 3 bat chats, an E5, an IS-7, a grill, and an RU-251. Now, this is a map where I struggle to see Deja Vu really being able to pull off anything too crazy, just because it's so open. I think it's going to be really hard for them to try to come in with some sort of hard bait switch.
Even on defense?
Even on defense.
they are attacking right now, but I'm just saying in general, even on defense.
Yeah, so the problem is on this map being as open as it is, and all these teams bringing as light and fast lineups as they have, it's going to be very hard for them to do something where one group won't be instantly overmatched. So it's just something to keep an eye on here. It is actually Apex that are going to set up for... It looks like they're going to go with their play that we've seen a lot out of the map recently, actually. And they're going to send some tanks towards the middle ridge. They're going to play very tight to this 5 line so they can quickly get up and over on their side. It's actually going to be Deja Vu that's going to push right up towards the middle. Chase Potato is going to poke over and get some lights, and the rest of the guns are going to be there ready to punish anything that does get spotted here in a moment.
Bounce off of a bad shot. What do you know?
Does the B in bat chat stand for bounce? I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
Well, no, it stands for bat or battalion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get never mind. You know
I mean,
what,
does
let's just drop it.
Bachillion mean bounce? I
Bachillion?
don't know. I don't speak French. But anyways, both teams almost running like identical setups right now. They're just kind of hanging out around the 6th line opposite of each other, not really wanting to commit to one side or the other, trying to get a read on what the other's doing. And it's actually going to be Apex that push over towards the 9 line, and Deja Vu are going to push out towards the 1-2 line. Apex are set up for this. They have Photo Finish in the middle there where he can hold down. They have Overload Prime in that E5 also on the south there, so he can pretty easily poke over and get the resets on that 1 cap. And the rest of Apex are going to push up and over the hill. Germ is going to go ahead and just sit up here passively as the bad shots move up behind them, and they're going to make sure that they aren't pushing into a trap. And this comes down to the same thing I've talked about earlier as far as, you know, you can get away with running the corny strats once, but then the second you try to do them a second time, their team's going to look for them. And if you notice how they're just checking every little corner to where they could possibly be setting up a trap, Germ just going over first, making sure that he's not walking into the whole other team, and that no one gets caught out. And they, so far, have done a pretty good job at clearing the 6 line. They're set up in a pretty solid defensive situation where there aren't a whole lot of options for Deja Vu. If they try to go for this 1 cap, they just aren't going to be able to really crack into it. If they try to go back, they're going to have to push through a lot of guns that now have control of the hill. As I say that, the Batchats actually are backing off the hill and rejoining the rest of the team of Apex.
There's 251 here of Chase. I was going to say, if he kept going north, he could have been in for a rude awakening, but he is actually going to back off. He did get lit, which gave, obviously, the team of Apex vision of him on the map as well as on their cameras, so he is going to back off.
I want to say almost a little bit of indecision coming out of Apex. They're actually sending their bat shots back towards the hill right now. Or they're sitting here just looking for anything to push over on Germ in the south, making sure they have an angle to support him. Meanwhile, the Doma just covering the heavy tanks up in the north.
Well, it seems like Deja Vu has found out exactly where the positions of Apex happen to be, which is why they made this huge push north and towards that 1 cap now. I don't think I've seen a game of Pro go like this before, James. And with only 6 minutes and 30 seconds, I mean, we've already run down about 4-5 minutes on the clock. Excuse me, 3.5 minutes. Thank you. Math is obviously not my strongest suit. $10 minutes already run down on the clock. Let's see where we go from here, James. What could Deja Vu possibly be setting up for here? I mean, they pretty much know where the tanks are from Apex, for the most part.
Yep, they know Overload Prime is here. They have a pretty good idea where Photo Finish is. They don't think he'll be too far behind. And the rest of the guns are just set up to punish any sort of push on him. So the only play they really have, as I've talked about before, is rotating back through the south and either coming up the 6 line we've seen people do, or coming up over the 8-9 line. The other option, not as preferable, but I have seen it done, is just hard pushing the A line with a couple tanks holding at, say, E4, and just pushing like 4 or 5 mediums into A5 and trying to clean out those mediums. If you have the numbers and you overwhelm them, you can normally get in there and get those 2 tanks for free. But then you end in the same sort of situation that we saw earlier out of High versus Eclipse, where you're kind of tucked into that 6 line,
right,
and you don't have anywhere to move. So not necessarily the best way to go about it up there in the north.
They will find a shot onto Germ. But he's still, I mean, he's not really going to go any. Wait a second. Chase Potato and Germ are going to find each other here.
Now, Chase Potato might have done exactly what he needs to do. He needs to stop Germ from poking up and over, because the second that he pops up and over, the gig is up. And those tanks aren't spotted yet, so...
Not quite
now
yet.
He
Germ
spots
actually,
them.
Yeah, Germ is going to fall, I believe.
Canadian Impact's going to try to get out of there. Germ needs to just bail into the water at this point because he has nowhere else to go. He's going to do exactly that. He's going to get down there. Now it's going to be pretty hard to dig out of there. And now the question is what do Apex do in response?
Well, finding shots onto My Little Putin, but just like that, the Doma and Akula have both taken almost about half their HP in damage.
So Germ's only taking 1 shot of damage, and it's actually Deja Vu that are up on the HP trades right now.
I was going to say, not too bad for Deja Vu right now. But what do they have? I mean, what are they going to need to do here to close this out?
Well, essentially at this point, they just need to find some sort of a solution.
Look at the time,
on
James.
some of these tanks. And this is the thing, is Apex don't need to do anything at this point. They just need to hold firm, and they've kind of realized that. So they've moved some bat shots up into the hill where they can cover Germ if they want to make the push over there. That E5 is a little bit isolated right now. Photo Finish has moved further towards the south, as has the Grill. So they're all in good positions to support each other. If Deja Vu want to push over the hill down the 0 line, Dodoma and that I7 should have side shots on them. If they want to push over to the I7 and Grill, the bat shots up on the hill will have a crossfire down. So pretty good stuff. However, Dodoma gets caught out.
Yeah, and even
bleeds some
still,
HP.
Apex is bleeding even more as Akula and Dodoma each take shots. Akula almost going down 275, which means he is 1 shot away from being taken out of the battle. Meanwhile, Germ has been overmatched, and he is going to go down here to either change or Harmless, and it's going to be Harmless that picks him up.
Yep, all those bat shots pushed up towards the hill. Apex realized they needed to do something, and so they dumped over into the 113s, trying to trade out these kills real fast. However, they don't get them. External does go down.
Yeah, Canadian Impact, though, will pick up a kill. But Apex is just so very low on HP. They could still win this, though, because there's only 2 minutes left on that timer.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, Apex not in a good position. They're down by about 6,000 HP, so they need to find a solution fast.
There it is, the 2-minute warning. Change doing a good job getting around that IS-7, finding a shot into his flank. They're still going to find Canadian Impact. 1 minute and 30 is left on the clock. Can Apex just stay alive just to find a reset or two while keeping one tank away in order to win this one? Some cap pressure finally mounting well, and it's actually going to be on the 1 cap, not the 2. And I don't think they can do it. I think this is it. Deja Vu is going to pick up yet another battle against Apex.
Yep, so Apex still have some work to do on Prok, apparently. Good overall positioning out of Deja Vu. And I've said it before, if a team set up like in that defense with the heavy tanks sitting there along the 5-6 line, you can't really attack it head on. You can try to stack up and take the A line and get in there, but you need to make some sort of play through the south. Now, last time I said that, we saw one team come back around and dump over the 5 line into the heavy tanks and tried the point blank, but they ended up losing out that trade. Right. And this time, Deja Vu did pretty much what I've said needs to be done. If you want to get away with that, you leave a couple tanks over towards the 1-2 line, and you flex the majority of your tanks along the red line, and you have to get in behind, back up on the 0, while they're stuck in the middle. So you have to open up on both sides, and you need to just find the angles and work them, and that's exactly what Deja Vu did.
Yeah, and here we see the damage is heavily in favor of, as far the top goes, in Deja Vu's favor, with My Little Putin against someone that's been so consistent over the season for the team of Deja Vu, and then changing to Gilles. Kula trying to find shots, but being the top of his team at only 1,800 in that bat shot, I mean, that pretty much tells the story right there. Apex really not able to find the shots.
Yeah, definitely. And, then looking at the second page, Overlord Prime only able to do 1,300 over 14 shots fired. A lot of that was at long range and or blind fire, but you'd still like to see more than 1,400 out of 14 fired. Meanwhile, Canadian Impact only got through 1 clip, was fully effective with those. He did get caught out, though. And then Photo Finish, also in that IS-7, fired 13 shots. So once again, doing some blind fire. But a majority of it, shooting at long range at fast-moving tanks. And at IS-7, it's, leaving it up to RNG's fate at that point. What's going to happen is,
good old RNG's.
Yeah, so, and that's something that we've talked about before. I've sat down and talked with Randall about for a good bit, some other people. It's minimizing RNG's chances.
Effects.
Yeah. RNG is always going to be in the game.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those things, you can argue there should be some changes to it back and forth. There's been a lot of discussions over it. However, the thing is giving yourself the best chance for it to not affect you. And so that is what you have to do with it in the game. You can't, sometimes you need to just minimize the chance for it to take over. Make sure your shots are fully aimed in, doing a lot of stuff. When you're firing off snapshots and all the other things, you're just allowing for that much more chance in each of your shots.
Looking at the lineups here for Deja Vu, it's going to be a 113 and E5, 3 140s, a Bad Chat, and a 251. Now, Apex is going to bring a 113, an I7, an STB, 3 Bad Chats, and a 251.
And Deja Vu now on defense, going with a very standard 2-line defense, bringing the E5 towards the bull at E4, along with the 113, leaving a lot of their mediums pretty deep on the 1 line. And it's just going to be Chase Potato that heads right towards that middle ridge, trying to get any intel that he can.
So we're not actually going to see anything near the same defense from Deja Vu.
Yeah, not at all. They're going for a very standard 1-line play. This is a very similar defense to what we've seen out of Eclipse. Has favored this and has gotten them into some trouble in the past, so they need to make sure they don't fall into the same mistakes. They don't have any way to clear that 1 line, so if they take the time to push all the way down there, their team stacks the cap. They could get caught out, and it looks pretty much that's exactly what Apex are set up to do, is just stack 3 of these tanks onto cap and get that cap pressure going very quickly. They're going to opt to drive a couple of them straight past cap and just leave external, or photo finish, excuse me, in that 113 on cap.
Yeah, they're just going to leave photo finish there.
Which does make some sense if you think about it. A lot of the common reset spots are along the train tracks at B6 and C6, underneath the train tracks. And the reason why they work so well is because normally they're just shooting at RE251s and batch at stuff that's easy to pen no matter where they hit them. So if you put a 113 in there where it's going to be a lot harder to find a penetrating shot, it could, make them be able to get that extra, few seconds to get those reset, or to, cap out essentially and not be reset. Meanwhile, they are just going to go over and find Chase, but they're going to opt to not trade him out.
Still a lot of damage going on to him with only about 1 shot, depending on the tank and roll, away from being taken out of the fight. Little standoff here. Wow, Harmless really lucky to not take any damage there. And about 55 seconds remain here as far as cap pressure goes, with still quite a bit of time on the clock for Apex to work with. So far, this battle has been in their favor.
Yeah, and Apex just trying to build up that cap pressure. Photo finish has actually moved off the cap, and they're leaving Germ on there, but he's going to get reset right as I say that.
And here's another problem. It's not like Harmless or Social Flaws can just pour over and overmatch Canadian Impact, because Photo Finish will be right there ready to help trade.
So Apex are up by about 1,500 on HP right now. They're looking pretty comfortable. However, the problem is that cap keeps being reset. Now, they still have 6 minutes to work with. However, if they get reset once more, I'd say they need to start, trying to figure out what their plan B is going to be and figure out how to really attack these tanks from Deja Vu. And meanwhile, the Batchats are actually going to make the push through the north. They are going to get out. They did the jump over the train tracks there in the distance, and they are going to be able to get over here. Now, if they realize that Nationwide's by himself, they might be able to go kill him for free. However, they're going to choose just to shoot at these mediums.
Oh, and Canadian Impact going to take out Chase Potato. Change as well, getting very low. And My Little Putin taking a lot of damage as well. Now, is Harmless is taking some shots that just damage all over the team of Deja Vu. They are desperately in need of some band-aids or something to stop this ridiculous bleeding of HP. And Akula now takes out Social Flaws.
That was a...
Scratch the band-aids. They're going to need miles of gauze at this point.
I love that play out of Apex. Using the new physics to their advantage, they jumped 2 of the Batchats over the train tracks at H6. So they took a shortcut. They were able to get around without taking any damage. They were very quickly able to get their mediums, or the Batchats, to have their guns train on those 140s, and they could just sit that crossfire. They had the numbers just right to where if Deja Vu pushed over, they were going to lose tanks. If they stayed there, they were going to lose the 2 Batchats. And overall, just good stuff out of Apex. They slowed it down. They made Deja Vu get a little bit complacent, and then they made that play. And just overall, great positioning and flex out of Apex.
That is going to lead us to our next map before we talk about damage here, and it's going to be Steps.
That's a map that I would heavily have to favor Apex on. However, they did go 1-to-1 with Eclipse on it the other day, so not perfect.
Yeah, but you could even then argue that that's Eclipse, but I understand what you're saying. It's not perfect.
Yeah, they definitely have some work that they could work on, so we'll have to see what they can do.
Absolutely. And look at that. Just Overlord Prime photo finish. This is actually one of the very first match days that we aren't seeing the most even spread across the team of Apex, and it's going to be Overlord Prime and photo finish doing... Well, Overlord Prime doing 3K, and then photo finish at 2100, and then even dropping down below that is External and Canadian Impact, as well as the Doma, but all at 1800. Again, Apex is so good at spreading out their damage. However, in this one instance, we finally had a player kind of break away.
Yep, and then, looking at the second page, Malaput not really able to get into that fight, kind of surprisingly. Did what he could, but just not really able to get any solid connections. Same with Durzel and Change, just, almost sub 1,000, so not really able to get in there. And then Chase Potato in that RU-251 got caught out a little bit late there. Wasn't really able to poke up and get any resets or anything, so just not really able to get into the fight. Not necessarily his fault, but...
Right.
He was sitting there just making sure they didn't cap out early. He was sitting there getting the lights. Every time he poked over, he got, shot. He almost went down to that first push by Apex, but they had to back off because they felt they were going to take too much damage for it.
So, Deja Vu and Steps.
So the one thing I just looked at, though, is it's going to be Apex on defense first.
Right.
So defense on Steps, that's a craft that you'd have to think that Apex should have a pretty good handle on.
Correct.
And overall, Apex's defensive win rate's like 85% on the season, so you got to favor them.
All right, well, let's get right into the next map between Apex and Deja Vu.
Steps, the most open map in the league. The attacking team appears near the rocks at the bottom of the map, and the defending team starts at the top. Bases are located near the railway and on the green. The best way to control them is to use the lowland near the second base. The attacking team usually begins the attack from the rocks and the railway, but sometimes they can attack through the green. Teams often drag vehicles from flank to flank, so both teams usually pick light vehicles with a good camouflage rating, but sometimes use tanks with a strong turret and even SPGs.
Alrighty then. So, what's an E50M?
So, Deja Vu are coming in here with a 113, an IS-7, 2 E50Ms, 2 Batchats, and an RU-251. But looking over at Apex, you need 5 Batchats and a RU-251.
Again, E50M. Haven't seen that.
German medium, very accurate gun. A lot of people call it a pocket heavy. It's kind of not sure what it wants to be. Kind of a heavy tank, kind of a medium, but not really.
Identity crisis?
Yeah, definitely a bit of an identity crisis tank. People love it for pub matches, especially for a tier 10 pub match anyways, because it has enough speed to flex around, it has some armor to survive, and its gun does hit pretty hard. However, the problem is its gun doesn't have the greatest DPM. In fact, it's near the lowest of any of the tier 10 mediums, right up there next to the Leopard and the 30B. And then, just overall, it does have some armor. The turret is extremely soft. Anything firing heat will go straight through that turret, so it's not a good hold-down tank. It does have a nice front plate that's pretty bouncy. Another thing that it's known for is ramming. If you look at that front plate and how just sharp it is.
Looks like a razor blade.
Yeah, if you hit something with that, it will do a good bit of damage.
So then the reason you're saying we don't really see this tank too often is because it's not necessarily the best at taking damage. As far as...
It's not really... It doesn't succeed in any one category to really be viable in competitive play. Now, for a pub match, not being good at any one area is not necessarily a bad thing because it makes you a decent all-around tank to adapt to whatever situation you're in. However, so if they want to go for a medium brawl, that's going to be very DPM heavy or burst heavy depending on, and E50M is not really good with dealing with that, especially at point blank. It doesn't have the greatest survivability, especially versus top players, because once again, the turret's extremely soft, the lower plate's pretty big, and it's not that fast. So not a whole lot you can do. It can side scrape on city maps. That used to be a tank we used to see, especially in some of the smaller Tier 10 tournaments back a long time ago, before League moved to Tier 10. Teams would bring E50Ms as like the one medium, then they'd bring a lot of E100s. Because it fires heat, it works well against some big hit tanks like a Mouses or E100s, so it's a decent tank in that regard. But it's never been a tank that's been used outright for any form of competitive play, really, outside of that, very rare situation.
Well, here we are seeing it.
Picking it on steps is where I'm most confused. We saw it. We did see it last season a couple of times on Cliff, point blank, where they could really just push into their team and just try to body block and ram and just be aggressive. And it, E50, it's 100 or 50-ton tank essentially. So it weighs a lot. It hurts when you ram into something, especially with that, just razor blade it has on the front. So it's decent at that, but overall, its CPM's pretty bad. And so, especially bringing two of them. One of them, okay, especially someone like Putin, if you want to trust him to pick his tank and do his own thing, I get it. But we'll have to see how they decide to use it right now.
I don't know.
And here's the problem, is Deja Vu have set up for a south rotate out of Apex. They're hoping that the cap pressure will trigger a south push. And instead, all it's done is made them group up harder towards the north. They will find Chase Potato here in a minute, and they may catch Putin out if they're not careful.
Yeah, again, even you are questioning this. You don't know why they would bring this, and I don't know why they would bring this. But
well, it's not that I don't know why they bring it.
Two of them at least.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any solid reason. Chase Potato just getting lit up there.
Oh, goodbye.
Great focus fire out of Apex. But my point is I just don't see any reason for it that really says, all right, it's so good at this one thing that we can utilize it to our advantage.
Correct.
And they're certainly not showing it being extremely useful right now. And it's not fast.
Honestly, they're just doing what you would honestly see like any tank do, or any Tier 10 medium. I don't know. I can't fathom, is what I'm trying to say, of why these tanks have been chosen.
They're actually going to take this time late in the game to boost up Canadian Impact.
Rather late boost, yeah.
So to quote just one other thing that just popped in my head, to quote a popular Twitch streamer, E50M is weak. Those out there that know it will get a Google out of that. And they are just going to push this E50M up and towards the A3 ramp. It is a very accurate gun. Don't get me wrong. It's one of the more accurate guns.
Right. Well,
it hits decent, but
you weren't saying it was a terrible tank.
Yeah. No, it's a fun tank. Believe me, I enjoy playing it. It's just for a competitive match, especially on steps, you're going to know where your tanks are going to be, and you're going to know. All right. So we need something that can pump out a lot of damage very quickly and can play a hold down position like the C50Ms right now. If you said it's going to be playing a hold down on steps up at A3, what tank do you want there? And I'm going to name off a couple. Most of them are going to be Russian mediums. A hold down tank, the last thing I'm going to pick is E50M. The turret's so weak that heat shells, especially like 140s often fire, will go right through it. The only blessing that Deja Vu have in regards to that whole thing with the turret being weak is Apex have brought a ton of bat shots that are all going to be firing APCR, so it may stand up a little bit better than against a team full of Russian mediums like we see out of like M60s or some other teams on this map.
Right. Well, I mean, it does seem like Deja Vu is trying to make something happen, even though it is just one bat shot on a cap. But
well, to tell you what sort of round it is, I've basically spent 5 minutes talking about the E50M, and neither of the teams have really done much in that whole time.
I mean, aside from Chase Potato getting focused out, yeah. We are seeing a south play, though, from Apex. They may just catch Deja and Harmless down there.
They don't really have anyone in position to stack cap with Deja Vu, so if they want to try to do that, it's not really an option at this point, but they're not really set up to really capitalize on an overmatch.
Decisions, James.
And Jeremy's going to push in. He's actually going to get in here without taking any damage. He's going to light both these tanks. And Photo Finish should find a reset. But actually, it's just going to cause both these tanks to leave. And here's the thing I've talked about is to get a tank out of here, you have to have control in the south. Deja Vu don't, so there's no one really in position to punish
no,
Germ.
Those bat shots are coming up from Apex.
And those tanks in the south,
This is about to be a very poor situation that Deja Vu finds themselves in.
they're waiting for a Akula, but they don't have that much time to wait. I don't think they realize that those tanks from Deja Vu are trying to flex in behind
Look
them.
at the time, James. Only 3 minutes left, and Deja Vu has nothing.
And they're going to catch changeout. He goes down. Great focus fire once again out of that Batchat hit squad from Apex.
Yeah, that's got to make you question what Dergil and Harmless were doing there.
Yeah, well, they didn't know that the tanks had gotten away, and they hadn't spotted all of them getting into that middle road, so they didn't know they needed to get on top of them quite that quickly. As I say that, Dergil in that E50M does find Germ. However, he's caught out in the middle of an open field, and these Batchats are going to flex around. Harmless is going to dive in here.
Oh, Harmless, you're crazy!
And good
Crazy
night.
dead!
Okay, now they're going to find Dergil.
And Nationwide actually still hasn't been spotted.
And here's the thing is because of the timing and because of the alternate eclipse, external's full despite having no HP. And off in the distance there, Doma is about to come into his clip, and he has a lot more HP to play with. So Kula's going to draw some fire from that Batchat. And now Doma essentially has free roam along there if he wants to. And there's only 2 minutes left. Canadian Impact's up on the boost, so I wouldn't expect to see him get down out of there. The rest of his team just needs to stall out for another minute and a half, make sure they don't get a cap pressure going. And he can just stay up there and not do a thing and guarantee the win.
Not looking good for Deja Vu. It doesn't seem as though they are going to repeat and take Apex to overtime this time around.
Does not look like it's in the cards, and these Batchats fully loaded are going to push in. They know Nationwide already exchanged some shots and didn't have a full clip. They didn't know he was reloading, though. He's the first one focused out.
And Dergil will fall next, which only leaves Social Flaws and My Little Putin to take on 6 tanks of the lineup of Apex.
And Apex are going to close out this series
And again,
5-2.
although I'm not good at math, I can promise you this. 2 versus 6 is not great.
And as some people say, 2 E50Ms is not equal to an E100. So,
Okay. Well, you're right.
and Apex get the final kill, and they close out the series 5-2.
5-2 for Apex.